The driver was annoyed by my constant pushing and finally snapped at me. "Are you trying to get killed?" I didn't care about his frustration, I just wanted to reach the sea, to go deeper into it. I even thought of grabbing the steering wheel, convinced I could drive faster. This idea consumed me. I unbuckled my seatbelt and reached for the gearshift. Although I had a driving license, I hadn't driven an automatic in a long time and forgot that not pressing the clutch could lead to the car stalling. We were on the Pingtan Strait Bridge, where the minimum speed limit was 60 kilometers per hour. A rear-end collision ensued. A massive impact nearly threw me forward. The driver was protected by the airbag and wasn't injured but was furious and seemed about to attack me. However, his safety belt jammed and wouldn't release. Cars behind us slowed due to the accident, giving me the opportunity to exit the bridge. The sunset cast glittering waves on the sea. In the northeast direction, between the sea and sky, numerous tendrils extended from irregular, colorful, geometric-like objects. They densely gathered in that area, and my gut told me they weren't limited to just that spot. I traced them with my gaze, and soon I saw the edges. At the edges, their massive bodies seemed partially hidden by something invisible. It was like the student's drawings. The objects were under a mask. And now the mask was removed. No, not that. I got it backwards. A mask protects the selected area, so what's under the mask isn't them, it's us. Why is this? Why is there a mask-like barrier in the world? Who put it there? What's its purpose? What will happen to us without protection? So many questions stabbed my brain like needles, and my knowledge couldn't answer any of them. I couldn't tear my gaze away, and the previous fear had vanished. Possibly, humans had evolved to fear these beings, embedding this fear in our genes so the brain sees without seeing, to protect ourselves. It seems they existed long before humans. Now, I've lost both fear and sanity. Behind me, people were arguing due to the accident. How I envy those who can't see. How I envy their happiness in ignorance. The ancient, haunting sound echoed in my mind once more, summoning me. I clung to the bridge railing with hands and feet, climbed over, and plunged into the ocean. Life on Earth originated from the sea. When everyone can see them, we will return to the sea. I was training an AI model for image analysis and randomly fed it a photo. A few seconds later, the screen was filled with question marks indicating unrecognizable. My company is a renowned internet giant, and our AI products are developed with significant investment, expected to be milestones in AI history. Despite being advanced in many aspects, precise image analysis wasn't a priority. After extensive data annotation and parameter tuning, the AI reached a recognition accuracy of 91%. It could identify wind turbines, sky, and sea water, and even analyze turbine models and materials, and infer the location and time of the photo. Yet, it still displayed full-screen question marks for this photo, which seemed straightforward. This photo was taken during my recent trip to Pingtan Island, focusing on wind turbines in shallow waters. Half the background was a gray sky, and the other half was an endless gray-blue sea. I suspected some parameters might be off, so I adjusted them and retested, but the result was the same. I downloaded a similar photo from the internet, taken at Pingtan Island with a similar composition, and tested it again. The AI accurately identified everything without question marks. I tried more complex images, and the AI maintained its accuracy, proving the model wasn't faulty. However, when I retested my original photo, it still showed full-screen question marks. The AI was trained on vast internet data and theoretically should recognize anything online. Even if it encountered something unrecognizable, it should only be a small part, not fill the entire screen. My photo contained nothing but wind turbines, sky, and sea with no other visible objects. I recalled horror movies from my childhood where facial recognition showed unexpected results, sparking fear that quickly turned into curiosity. As a computer science PhD, I don't explain unknowns with supernatural factors. After experimenting, I called my friend Ethan Zhang in Fuzhou, asking him to take more photos at Pingtan Island. The next day, I received his photos. Most photos worked fine with the AI, even recognizing clothing brands on people. However, some photos featuring the sea and sky in the northeast direction showed unrecognizable objects. These weren't taken at the same location but shared the same orientation. Ethan was curious and asked about the situation. I shared the story with him since it wasn't confidential, and we video called to demonstrate. He was intrigued and suggested, "Why don't you come over this weekend? We can check it out together." After some thought, I agreed. However, upon arriving at Fuzhou Changle Airport on Friday evening, Ethan's phone was off. This made me uneasy. He promised to pick me up. I called his girlfriend, Emily Jiang, and learned that Ethan was gone. I met Emily, whose eyes were red from crying. I briefly comforted her before asking about Ethan's death. "How did it happen? Did you report it to the police? What did they say?" Emily took a while to calm down before explaining the recent events. She said Ethan became unusual after returning from Pingtan on Tuesday. On Wednesday, he didn't go to work, locked himself in his study, refusing food and drink, and would get angry when she tried to check on him. This was unprecedented. Emily was more worried than angry. She heard muffled sounds from his study but couldn't make out what they were. On Thursday, the situation persisted. Feeling something was off, she planned to take him to the hospital on Friday morning. When she opened his study door, he was gone, and she assumed he'd returned to normal and gone to work. However, he never showed up at the office, so she called the police. Within an hour, police discovered that Ethan drove to Pingtan early that morning, hired a fishing boat, and headed east into the sea. After over 8 hours, nearby ships and coastal radio stations received a distress call. The captain said Ethan had hijacked him and another sailor, demanding they sail northeast at 60 degrees toward the Pacific. Coastal authorities launched a rescue operation. Before finding the boat, they received another signal, which was disrupted by disturbing white noise. Then, all signals from the boat disappeared. Authorities believed it was a maritime accident, but despite sending more rescue ships, there were no results. After Emily's account, I felt a chill. Everything seemed surreal. How could Ethan's death be linked to a simple photo request? I was certain his strange behavior was connected to Pingtan Island, specifically, the area where the AI couldn't recognize objects. I visited Ethan's home to understand what happened after our call. I believed he must have left some clues since he was going to meet me. However, I found nothing significant. I searched his study extensively but only found some scribbles in the trash, torn from a new marine biology book. The characters seemed to move and resist understanding. The marine biology book itself was ordinary, but it showed Ethan had been studying ocean life after returning from Pingtan. This further linked his death to my request. I felt intense guilt and curiosity. Either way, I decided to visit Pingtan Island again. The next morning, I rented a car and set off. The distance from Fuzhou City to Pingtan Island is only a few dozen kilometers, taking about an hour to drive. It wasn't peak tourist season, but Pingtan often features the breathtaking blue tears effect, so there were still scattered tourists. I drove to where Ethan had parked, but his car had been towed away by the police. According to Emily, the police found the car with the keys still in the ignition, suggesting Ethan never intended to return. The area was a small fishing village harbor. Due to the accident the previous day, about 20 to 30 fishing boats of varying sizes were docked, gently swaying in the strong sea breeze. The air was thick with the salty smell of the sea. The weather wasn't good, with dense clouds covering the sky, turning the sea into a gray expanse. In the distance, the sea surface seemed to blend with the horizon, making it impossible to distinguish land from sky. I took out my full-frame camera and captured every visible detail. Then, I walked into a seaside cafe, which was the last place Ethan was seen on surveillance. He had bought coffee here before renting a boat and heading out to sea. I ordered something, planning to observe for a while and then ask the staff about Ethan. I plugged in my laptop, imported the photos, and zoomed in on them. I could see even the smallest details, like the colors of the birds far out at sea. The cafe staff brought me my hot coffee, and I took a sip before testing another image in the AI model. Predictably, the photo was covered in question marks indicating unrecognizable. I turned to the window and saw the exact same view as in the photo, just a gray sky and gray sea. The owner's reprimanding voice snapped me back into reality. "You're not even paying attention when it's right under your nose. What are your eyes for?" The server apologized, clearly on the verge of tears. It seemed she had accidentally spilled a drink. It wasn't intentional. The server replied, but her eyes seemed well up with tears. Another customer intervened. "Don't be too hard on her, boss. It happens, and things right in front of us can go unnoticed. From a scientific standpoint, processing visual information takes time, even if it feels instantaneous. This can lead to processing delays and inattentional blindness, making us blind to things in plain sight. Thinking about this sent a shiver down my spine. Blind to things in front of us, I repeated, and my body seemed to move of its own accord, slowly turning back to the window. The tables, umbrellas, plants outside, and the distant sea all filled my vision. Had I missed something that the AI couldn't recognize? The thought sent goosebumps all over me. Cold air seemed to rush into my pores, spreading across my body. The owner chimed in, offering a free drink, and sent the server to fetch more coffee beans from the storage. She's usually sharp, but for some reason, she's been distracted since yesterday. He added. Did anything happen yesterday? I asked. The owner replied while preparing drinks. Not much. Just that a customer who came in yesterday died at sea. The police questioned her. She was the last one to see him before he left. Maybe she was intimidated by the questioning. I suggested, and they changed the subject. Once the server, Tina Zhang, returned, I approached her and learned she was a local. She had started working at the cafe 2 years ago after her high school exams didn't go well, not wanting to follow in her parents' footsteps as fishermen. When I asked about Ethan, her demeanor suddenly changed. She stood up to attend to her duties, though the cafe was empty. Her nervousness and evasive responses only made me more convinced she knew something. After I mentioned a payment of $2,000, she sat back down. I don't know Ethan, but when I saw him, I thought of my brother. Tina's voice trembled. It wasn't that they looked alike, it's that they said the same thing before they died. Tina explained that her brother, William, was studying marine biology at Xiamen University but returned home unexpectedly 3 years ago. He became silent and spent a week visiting the beach every day, returning home with a blank expression. That time, Tina was worried but got no response from William. He repeated this for days until he was unrecognizable. The next evening, his body was washed ashore, covered in wounds from being battered by rocks and whitened by the sea. This event deeply shook Tina, affecting her studies and leading to poor exam results. Ethan's condition the previous day was just like William's. Envy of ignorance? I muttered, trying to understand. Many people believe that the ignorant live more happily. This ignorance is neutral, just a state of being. For example, children are fearless when playing with insects because they don't fully understand the risks. Why would someone about to die say such a thing? I had an answer, but it sent shivers down my spine. I forced myself to stay calm and asked, "Did you know where your brother went on the beach?" Tina pointed to a nearby beach, a place her brother used to take her to. He was passionate about marine life and believed the ocean, covering 71% of the Earth's surface, must harbor more undiscovered life forms. This drove his pursuit to study at Xiamen University. From William and Ethan's similar deaths and final words, it seemed their causes were alike. Perhaps their deaths were due to losing their sanity upon recognizing something that shouldn't be known, a reality too terrifying to face, leading them to seek escape in death. I struggled to steady my hand and pointed outside, asking Tina, "Did you see anything?" Tina looked confused and followed my gaze. "Did you see nothing?" I pressed on. Not even the boats, sea, or sky. Tina's response was unclear. What do you mean? I saw those things. She seemed relieved but also a bit bewildered. I thought you meant something else. I glanced at the screen full of question marks and whispered, maybe there's something else there. Our brains can subjectively interpret visual information, like seeing things that aren't there, but computers don't, they process information as it is. Yet, when I tested the photos with another company's AI, there were no issues. This small glitch seemed to be linked to 2 deaths, and my rationality warned me to stop investigating. However, guilt over Ethan and innate curiosity drove me to head toward the beach. The weather at the beach was unpredictable. In the short distance from the cafe to the beach, the gray sky was suddenly pierced by sunlight, revealing a brilliant blue sky behind the clouds, and the sea changed to a stunning hue. There weren't many tourists on the beach in the fishing village. Only a group taking wedding photos and a few students painting were present. My eyes couldn't appreciate the beauty, they seemed drawn to something invisible, as if being beckoned deeper into the ocean. I felt the waves hitting my feet, legs, and thighs until I was pulled back by several strong forces. It took me a moment to snap out of my trance, followed by a wave of fear that left my legs trembling. The ones who saved me were two of the students. They struggled to drag me back to shore, where more joined in. They reassured me, trying to dispel any thoughts of self-harm. I was consumed by fear because I had no suicidal thoughts, but my actions made my words unconvincing. It took a while for me to calm down. After thanking my rescuers, I was eager to leave the beach. Since the two students who saved me were wet, I offered to drive them home. They didn't refuse. I told them to wait while I fetched my car from the cafe. My laptop and camera were still there. I had originally booked a room at the cafe, but faced with the terror of death, I decided to attribute everything to an AI error and stop the investigation. I made Tina prepare warm drinks for the students on the beach as a token of appreciation. When I returned with the drinks, the two students who saved me were finishing up a drawing. They peeled off the white tape from the edges of the paper and began packing. I was restless, waiting nearby. To distract myself, I started a conversation. Why do you put tape on the edges of the paper? It keeps the paper in place on the board and protects the edges from paint. She showed me her work. After removing the tape, the paper edges were clean, like a frame. I remembered what the tape looked like for a moment. It had picked up random paint splatters due to carelessness while painting. It's like using masks in Photoshop, I said. Yes, similar. Do you often come here to draw? Not really. Before we finished our brief conversation, they gathered their belongings, and I urged them to get in the car. I sped out of the village and drove them home. They gave me the paintings they made and warned me not to do anything reckless again. I promised them, immediately booking a return flight and contacting the car rental company to pick up my car at the airport. Only when I deleted the photos from my camera in the pressurized massage chair at the airport lounge did I feel some relief. I pulled out the paintings. One depicted the coastal fishing village, the other showed fishing boats docked at the harbor. In both, the sea and sky occupied about a quarter of the canvas. I don't understand art, so I couldn't judge their quality. They did seem very realistic. The colors were vibrant but presented a peaceful everyday scene. The areas covered by tape were unusually clean and seemed not to belong to the same plane as the rest of the painting. This realization suddenly struck me like a hammer, causing a severe headache. If the AI wasn't mistaken, if there was really something unrecognizable, could it be because we weren't on the same plane? My thoughts uncontrollably drifted back to the sea, no matter how hard I tried to snap out of it. I believe many people have experienced this. Trying not to think about something only makes you think about it more. The scenes in my hands began to distort, waves from the painting spilled out, engulfing me with the fishing boats. I tasted the salty sea and couldn't keep my eyes open or breathe, feeling immense pressure crushing my body. A smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. I slowly opened my eyes to find myself in a hospital room. The nurse told me I fainted in the airport lounge, and an emergency call was made. After checking, the doctors found me healthy, but the cause of fainting was unclear. Further tests would require my consent. During my unconsciousness, my flight took off. The next available flight was 6 hours later. I declined more tests and instead made an appointment with a psychiatrist. I held on to the hope that today's bizarre behavior was just paranoia brought on by Ethan's death. The psychiatrist couldn't make a definitive diagnosis after listening to my story and prescribed some regular medication, along with a strong sedative called secobarbital at my insistence. When I left the hospital, I shredded the paintings and threw them in the trash. If only I could dispose of my memories from the day as easily. But that was impossible. I had to carry these potentially life-threatening memories to the airport. I was certain my current state wasn't far from Ethan's and William's before they died. Sitting in a taxi, watching the skyscrapers roll by, another question popped into my head: why did AI only fail to recognize objects in the northeast direction of Pingtan Island? I knew I shouldn't think about it anymore, but my brain behaved like a parasitic worm, beyond my control. I unlocked my phone and searched online for any bizarre incidents at Pingtan Island. Most results were about ghost sightings. I opened a related post and was startled by a spooky face. Although I don't believe in ghosts, such scares still left me instinctively afraid. I hastily exited the page. This fear of the unknown is an evolutionary survival mechanism hardwired into our genes to alert us to danger. After my adrenaline subsided, I browsed a bit more, but the information didn't match my situation. Ethan had been researching marine biology before his death, and William, being a graduate student in the field, frequently visited the sea before he died. Could this suggest that the unrecognizable objects were related to unknown marine life? At least Ethan and William seemed to think so. Ethan's scribbles in his book suddenly appeared in my mind. They must have some meaning I couldn't decipher. Thinking this, I opened my backpack, pulled out my laptop, and imported the photos of the scribbles into the AI program for analysis. I held my breath, waiting for a response as the laptop's CPU worked at high capacity, causing the cooling system to make a loud roar. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, joking. "You're really working hard, even on a trip?" I couldn't respond. My full attention was on the computer screen. The AI analyzed the scribbles, determining they were created by layering over different handwritten marks multiple times. It broke down the image into over 20 layers. Each layer showed some kind of graphic, but they looked like chaotic drawings by a 3-year-old, twisted lines and irregular geometric shapes haphazardly mixed together. Those shapes didn't resemble any animal or plant. Had the AI malfunctioned, or had Ethan gone mad when drawing them? I made the AI reanalyze several times, with similar results. The most significant difference was in one analysis where a layer appeared with a text-like message. I saved this image separately and imported it into the AI model. After multiple adjustments, it revealed a readable text. "Don't see, don't see, don't see, don't see, don't see." The scene before me began to distort again, with the familiar white noise returning. This time, however, it sounded strangely soothing, interspersed with faint whispers. The sound seemed magical, beckoning me to listen closer. "Driver, I'm not going to the airport, please go to Pingtan Island." I became increasingly urgent, urging the driver to speed up.